The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp is a British film made at the height of the Second World War, being released in the summer of 1943, so it can't help be a bit of a propaganda war film, at least to the extent of promoting the British Armed Forces. However, the film is far more than that. In many ways it undermines or pokes fun at the British officer corps, to some extent British political leadership and British diplomats. The film's major star is Roger Livesey, whose smooth voice runs through the entire film. His role is a general representation of a newspaper cartoon character at the time called Colonel Blimp. In the actual film, the character goes by the name of Clive Wynne Candy. Most of the film is shown in flashback of Clive's earlier officer postings in the British Army, including his encounters with Theo Kretschmar, an officer in the German Imperial Army, played by Anton Walbrook. The first flashback starts in 1902, when a lady called Edith writes a letter home to England to complain that particular Germany is spreading anti-British propaganda about the British Army in South Africa. Edith is played by Deborah Kerr, and the actress popped up in several roles in the film as the flashbacks walk towards modern times. Clive Wynne Candy then starts to travel to Germany to set records straight about the British Army, but he's refused permission to travel to Germany in case he upsets the delicate political situation at the time. Clive then ignores the official and goes anyway. Then, according to the officers in the German Imperial Army, Clive manages to insult the army, and they draw lots as to which officer will fight Clive in a duel. Theo gets drawn as the duelist, and both men end up recovering in the same nursing home from the wounds they acquire in the duel. And they slowly start to become friends, despite Theo only being able to cooperate in broken English. Edith visits the pair during the recovery and appears to fall in love with both of them, and becomes engaged to Theo around the time Clive also figures out that he is also in love with Edith. However, Clive won't stand in the way of Edith and Theo, and the embassy put pressure on Clive to return home before he starts more trouble in Germany and shipping back home to England. The film then moves forwards to World War I, where in the mud and the rain, Clive then meets a nurse, Barbara, again played by Deborah Kerr. In part due to her resemblance to Edith, he eventually marries her. Clive then meets up with Theo in a British prisoner of war camp, but due to his status as in the defeated German army, he's reluctant to have anything to do with now General Candy. Something he changes his mind over just as he's being repatriated back to Germany, but Theo is worried about the future of Germany if it has any place for defeated soldiers. However, later in conversation with other officers, it appears they may be going to use British efforts at getting Germany back on its feet again to rebuild the army again. The film then moves on to World War II, and Clive is reactivated into the army, naked, running the Home Guard. Theo has also returned to England, disgusted with what the Nazis are doing to Germany, and to meet up again to discuss many things, including their wives and Clive's attitude to the war, especially the way of fighting it. Clive's attitude is he'd rather lose the war than use Nazi methods to fight the war, when Theo informs him that his attitude of fair play is outdated and the army has to fight dirty, or the only methods left will be Nazi method. And Clive eventually comes round to Theo's point of view, in part due to the realisation that Clive in his youth was a rule breaker and a challenger of officers who were too hidebound to adapt to the future of warfare, and that Clive is transforming into the Colonel Blimp that's actually become the officer that young Clive would despise. There's a lot more to this film than the brief summary, but take it from me, it's an excellent watch. Roger Livesey's voice makes it easy to listen to, and the make-up aging the characters of Clive and Theo over 40 years is excellent. Public element to the story is fairly well obscured by an excellent plot that roars along at quite a speed, despite the film being over 2 hours long.